Leslie Dickinson. And this is about the bowl that I put online that had the Philip Jacobs cabbage in it, the brassica. And I'm going to show you today how to make the little flowers that go in the bowl. First thing I want to talk about is your supply list. Some of the things that you're going to want to get together is, this is a fusible, it's a non-woven, fusible craft stabilizer. And the number is 808. You can get this at Joann's Fabric. And it's usually on the yellow bolts. The yellow bolts are the craft stabilizers. They put colors to the specific stabilizer that you're using. It's a lightweight stabilizer. You don't want to get too heavy a stabilizer. If you go into the heavier Pellon stabilizers, it's going to be too hard to manipulate. So it's important to use just a lightweight stabilizer. The other thing you want to get is Steam-A-Seam. You can get the Steam-A-Seam light, it'll work, but when you're working with a non-woven, it's better to use the Steam-A-Seam than Wonder Under or Misty Fuse, because the Steam-A-Seam is tackier and you won't get any kind of bubbles that will occur if you use like a Wonder Under or Misty Fuse. So you want to get your iron guard, your little Teflon iron guard, so that you don't get fusible on your iron. The other thing I like to have is I like to use my stiletto, because a lot of times when I'm working with it, a little stiletto of some kind, or even just a long pin from your pin cushion will help. But you need something with a good point on it. For gluing, I use Starbucks. I just go into Starbucks and I get their little plugs for their caps on their coffee. Or you can use your purple thingy thing. That works as well. And then I also like a good pair of tweezers when I'm working with it. For embellishing afterwards, because usually when I finish one, I will do something in the center of it. I like to embellish things. This is a wonderful product. It is from specialtybeads.com. It's actually a a wire mesh. It's a very, very fine wire mesh. And this is something that's really fun to use because you can get it in many different colors: turquoise, lavender, dark blue, aqua, copper. But one of the things that I liked about this is that I got tired of having to stitch so many beads in it. This is actually a tube of wire mesh, and so you can open the tube up, you can fill the tube with beads, and then you can just pull it around and then stitch this in place in the middle, and you have this full of beads. The other thing I like are these glittery tulle that you can get at Michael's or Joann's. The glittery tulle is a nice thing to use. My favorite is this camouflage tulle. It's really wonderful because it has this real mottled look to it. So I like to play with the camouflage tulle. But then what you do is you take and you cut a piece of this tulle, and then you would just bunch this up, and when you're ready, your bowl is done, you're going to, like in a lot of cases, I take the color that's in the center of these, and I will take that color and put it in the center, and then I'll stitch a bunch of beads right on top of the tulle. The other thing is go to your button department, find little ladybugs, grasshoppers, just interesting buttons, and you can use these inside. I use those in a lot of my cabbage. I put little ladybugs in. Seed beads that have glitter are better because they show up on the background better, and so you could just use them in the colors that are in your fabric if you want. If you go to any jewelry store, you can get this stuff called Fireline, and it's what I use for beading. It holds together better than thread. It's like a waxed fishing line, I think, and it's a really nice product for doing any kind of beading. The other product I'm going to be using as I put my spiral together is the clear gel tacky glue. And you want a more permanent glue. There's an Eileen's tacky glue out there that is not the clear gel, and it's like a white almost like an Elmer's glue type of thing, but this is tackier and it will hold longer and better. It's because I'm going to be using this, I need a wider mouth, and I don't use the tip of this to apply it. So I put some into a medicine bottle, and then that's where I'm going to be dipping this in order to get just a spot of glue as I'm creating my spiral and pulling it back together and sort of reconstituting my cabbage. So the best fabrics to use, I have found, are the capes. And the reason I like the capes is because you can get them in almost every colorway. And any of these are just wonderful for making the cabbages. And I used, you can see I've cut this up, I've used a lot out of this particular piece. And so it has to be something though that you can spiral. So if I look at this, I can tell that I can follow some of this out and get a nice spiraling effect as I'm moving out. And then I'll show you how I'm going to pull it back together. So something like these work really well. Roses would work. The Philip Jacobs peony works really well too. These peonies are wonderful to do. So if you can get a hold of some Philip Jacobs peonies, these are really fun to do. I didn't find them in as many colorways that I liked, and that's why I ended up going with the brassica instead, because you could do a multitude of colorways. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find a flower that I want to work with. I'm going to take that flower and I'm going to put it on my stabilizer. So that 808 craft stabilizer I was telling you about, it's fusible, so I'm going to iron right onto it. So that's what I've done here. I've taken one of the colorways of the brassica, I have put the stabilizer on the back, and I just ironed it right onto the back. So you want to find another fabric. I put the steam-a-seam on another piece of fabric that this is going to fit on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stabilizer and I am going to pull my paper off where I have ironed the steam-a-seam on. So we're going to pull this paper off at this point. And this is real tacky because the steam-a-seam is incredibly tacky. I'm going to pull that off and I'm going to find the best way to get this on. I should have cut it a little bit bigger. I'm just going to push it down, and I'm probably, just to avoid having too much tackiness on here, I'm going to go ahead and just trim some of this stuff off. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm taking this, I've just got this setting on top of my backing with the steam-a-seam, and I'm going to put my Teflon over it to protect my little iron, and I'm going to just apply some heat to this, and then I'm going to, in this case, turn it over because this is the tacky part. I don't want it on my wool ironing mat, so I'm turning it over and I'm applying it with heat. Now this is ready to cut out in my spiral. So I'm wanting to get all of the tacky part off of here. So I am just making this petal cut. Petal meaning just it's kind of squiggly, I guess. And it doesn't matter because as long as it looks like a petal. So I take that all off. And now what I have to do is I have to look at this and I have to start figuring out, okay, where am I going to start with my spiral? I'm going to start probably somewhere right in here, and I'm going to follow this line, not exact, around here, and keep going around here. And see here, this is too close, so I'm going to dip down and come back up. And now I'm going to move in closer here, dip down a little, move in here, and just keep going around. And when I get to where I was before, I'm going to move in a little further, and I'm going to just keep doing that until I get to the center. So here I have one that I've already cut out, but I wanted to show you how I did that. So what I did is I started right here. I moved around, just making sure that I never go too close to the edge of the next piece. So you can see where I cut around here, and then I just kept going in and in and in until I got to a centerpiece. And so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to spiral this into a bowl. And I put some glue into my little medicine bottle so it's easier to get into. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start gluing. And in order to do the gluing, what we are going to do is we're going to start right here with this middle portion. And I am going to make my first dot of glue. So I take my little thing and I just put a little bit of glue right here and then hold it, and I'm going to take a pen and stick the pen through it, just barely. And then I'm going to move to the next section over here, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to put just a spot of glue. And this dries clear, so you don't need to worry about if you get that little blob there. And in this case, I might not need a pen. So now I'm going to move over to this side here, pulling it in, and I'm going to go ahead and push this pen through that other layer. And now I'm going to put another spot of glue over here, because this is going to hold and stay where it is. But I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put another spot of glue there. Put another pen in, and sometimes the little tiny applique pens work better than using a big pen, but I found that the applique pens also sometimes stuck in the glue. So I'm going to pull it around, and I don't really need to put glue there. I might do it afterwards. I might decide, oh, this needs a little more stability, and put a spot of glue, but right now I don't think it really needs it. And I'm getting too much glue there. So I'm going to put another spot of glue. I'm going to put another pen in. I'm going to move around this way. And you can make these tighter so that they're more raised up, or you can make them looser so that they're a flatter bowl. Okay, right here I'm going to go ahead and stick this pen through this part, just on the edge. Same thing here. So in this case, I'm going to put a spot of glue here. Move around, put another spot of glue. And then this one, I don't want this tip to stick up too high, so I'm going to make sure I kind of tuck it down in. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you here that one of the things that really helps is that I might take an extra piece that I have that I cut off from another one and stick it right there so that I get some of that color over here that I want. So I take that extra little piece and I'm going to just rub some glue back and forth on it. So I tucked it behind this piece to hold it in place, and then I'm going to put a pin in here. And then looking at this, you know, it's kind of a shallow bowl, and looking at it, I'm high on this side, low on this side. But I look over here and I think, it might be nice to have a little bit more of the flower in here. So this might sit in my bowl this way so that I can glue this part to my bigger bowl. And that just gives me a little more color in this area. So I would go ahead and put some glue on it. pen in it. And then it's just about letting it dry. But if you want some other color in it, or you want to add to it, anything that's already on Steam-A-Seam from cutting out a bowl, I would go ahead and cut it out, put it on the stabilizer, and then I might use this to tuck in just to get a little more color in it. And so you can do that throughout the bowl. If you want to add color around the outside, you could cut out another ring and add that inside of it. And if you would like, you can display them in a bowl like I did. I took a class with Hilde Morin. She lives in Portland, Oregon. She's an amazing fabric artist. And she has a blog that teaches you how to make these duck cloth bowls. They're a nice stiff bowl. You can hang them on the wall, or you can use them as a flat bowl. In this case, I had made 3 separate bowls and put them together to create kind of a chihuly look. And so if you are interested in that, we're going to provide you with the information on how to get to her blog for making bowls. She also makes small flowers out of the duck cloth, and I'm going to give you that blog as well so that you can look at how she makes her flower. I think that a bowl is a great way to display these because they just make it fun to have a bowl full of flowers.